What's up with y'all? It's Aquila Beats, and today we're going to be doing more of like an R&B guitar, SZA, Bryson Tiller. And I'll be showing you how to actually do the guitar samples, and I'm also going to be breaking down the drums. Let's just get into it. So you already heard the guitar in the intro, but just to get the tone, all you need, I'm using bias effects too. You can really use any guitar amp. All it's really doing is adding some compressors, and it's doing an EQ. I'm really just doing this to boost the highs because I have a very bassy, low, mids guitar. Then just some amp simulators and a little bit of reverb and delay. But now I'm going to switch up the camera and show you how to actually play these. So the most important thing whenever you're making these R&B guitar samples is to make sure that you're using 7th chord. So what we've always learned is just to do like, you know, A majors, E majors, A minors, E minors, those kind of things. But what you need to do is actually look up the major 7 and minor 7 chord shapes. So for this sample in particular, all we're doing is the A major 7 chord shape, which is just this, an A minor chord shape, which is this, and an E minor chord shape, which is this. So all I'm doing for the sample is first, I always just get down a chord progression that I like in general, and then I just make it R&B. So all I'm doing is I'm doing an F major chord. I like doing bar chords, so I'm going. You can hear that doesn't sound very R&B, but it's a general chord progression that I like. So to get these chords sounding R&B, you have to change it from the major to the major 7s and the minor 7s. So all I'm doing is I'm taking that F major chord and now I'm making an F major 7. And I have photos of the chords all on the screen so you can follow along easily. So now you can hear once I change all these major chords into major 7s and all these minor chords into minor 7s, all of a sudden it sounds really R&B. And all this is it's an F major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, then an A minor 7. So we got our chord progression. Now we change all the chords from, you know, just regular major chords and minor chords to major 7s and minor 7s. But now how can we really add on top of this? And the main way to do it is through embellishments. So the way you do with an embellishment is you're doing hammer-ons and pull-offs. And all that is I have this chord, the F major 7, but with my pinky, which is on the B string, I'm flicking it on. And sometimes I'm even shaking it a little bit, just to add some vibrato. So you can hear like, you can hear that just adds a little oomph to it, you know, a little sexy time going on now. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that for basically all the chords. And this will just give it so much more life. So here's it without it versus with it. You know, we got a little. But then you add those. And also we're adding like these little strums where the snares should be, just to give a little more rhythm, get a little more oomph. So what you need to do is just add these little, you know, accents and these little embellishments and hammer-ons and pull-offs and all that. And all of a sudden your chord progression goes from being really boring to being really cool, really ambient. It has a little bit of spice to it. So then I recorded it in, and this is what it sounded like after, you know, it did a take. Usually don't just do 2 or 4 bars. Try to get an 8-bar loop just so that each of the chords sounds a little bit different. But now for freestyling, you're just going to find these pentatonic scales. So I did an E minor pentatonic scale. I'll leave it on the screen. But all you're doing is you play any notes within that scale and it'll sound good. So now I'll throw in the lead guitar just to hear what I did, but I'll give you the overall idea of how to get this. So it sounds pretty complicated, but all I'm doing is I'm in this E minor 7 pentatonic scale. I'm just freestyling around. But one thing you need to keep in mind is I don't like using a pick. I think using your hands is just a little bit softer, makes it sound a little better. So what you need to make sure to do when you're doing these kind of R&B leads is you're not going to pick each note like very staccato. You're not going to go. You're going to go. So the way to do this is through hammer-ons and pull-offs, but doing them a little bit more subtly. So say I'm on the G string and I want to go. Instead of going, you know, and picking them individually, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the first note. I'm just going to take my finger off. I'm not going to do a hammer off where you're hitting the note again. I'm just lifting it up, and it'll still sound way cooler and way smoother than if you just went So all I did was freestyle around, and that's how I got to where I'm going. But like I said, I'll just freestyle some random stuff here just so you can hear like a general idea what I'm doing. So you heard me do a little bit of the freestyle in there, but as you can see, all I was doing is doing these embellishments, doing these accents, doing a little bit of vibrato, and it really just accentuates and elevates the sample. But then I finished recording it, and then we're going to go into a different project, and now we're going to actually do the drums. So now that I'm in a new project, I really just dragged in the sample and pitched it down one semitone, just because I think it sounded a little bit better, a little lower toned. Then for the drums, I'm doing very simple hi-hats and snares. With these R&B beats, especially because this is meant to be really smooth, I like staying away from snares because I think they just are a little bit too harsh. So I just like sticking with rims and snaps and things like that. But with everything, you want to get really dynamic, so you can see the hi-hats here. I'm changing the velocities on every single hi-hat just to make sure that it's not getting too stale, not getting too, unhuman, because we want to make this feel very authentic, very real, very human-made, which is why we're doing this with the velocities. Then one thing is with a lot of these R&B beats is you're not doing too much, so you want to add just very subtle filler things in the background. So I'm really just adding a pad in the background to fill out in the second half of the chorus. Then for mixing, as always, I really don't add anything. I really just level everything to make sure it sounds good before finally adding in a fill, and I'm done.